Hello YouTube, my name's Marie. Today we are going to talk about the entire season of Extracurricular. This is a Netflix original crime, thriller, high school aged K-drama, and it's only 10 episodes, and I'm pretty late to the party when it comes to this show, so it is going to be spoiler-ish. I definitely recommend this show if you were disappointed by Everything and Nothing and you're really enjoying the darkness that's within How to Buy a Friend. Extracurricular is about a seemingly perfect high school student whose only concern is maintaining his pristine record. He keeps his head down and he keeps out of trouble. But this squeaky clean facade is only that. It's a facade. It is one side of his life. Because this same student has been abandoned by his parents and been fending for himself for years. How, you might ask, does this high schooler pay for rent, pay for his food, pay for transportation, pay for the tutoring lessons he receives? And that is by running a neat little sex trafficking ring. Operating under the alias of Samchun or Uncle, he matches prospective Johns with prostitutes and provides swift protection if the situation turns dangerous for the girls. He's been doing this successfully for several years and has been able to diligently save a nice little chunk of money for himself because he has dreams of attending university. And we all know university ain't cheap. But everything is jeopardized when he misplaces his work phone. So this show delivers. My initial instinct when scripting this review was that I was gonna have to spend at least 5-10 minutes just raving about the production side of this show because it definitely deserves it. But then I decided it would just be a lot more simple if I told you guys just to go watch the trailer. Watch the trailer and know that all of the promises that are made within the trailer are kept. Promises of crisp, well-edited filmmaking, of a high-intensity soundtrack, and a gritty, violent thriller with powerful performance. All of these things are made evident by the trailer, which let's just appreciate how good the trailer is. With high stakes and a gripping plot, this K-drama feels like a rubber band that is just stretched to its limits. You're just constantly on the edge of your seat, feeling that tension. So when it eventually snaps and our male lead kind of has a little bit of a psychological break from all of the pressure and the situations he's been through, he's definitely suffering from PTSD. I found it a little bit unlikable simply because I prefer character arcs where our characters start at the bottom and end at the top, whereas this is the reversal of that. So it wasn't the most likable thing to me. It made me kind of emotionally tired, very similar to how I was feeling with World of the Married, but I cannot argue that the execution was not just like on point. In my opinion, his PTSD-induced nightmares are some of the most engaging sequences of the entire show. A few of my other favorite moments from the show, high school students go and trash the karaoke bar. I thought the action there, Daredevil-esque. And then another one of my all-time favorite scenes is when homeroom teacher is asking our male lead if he wants to explode because he'll be there to pick up the pieces. And I really enjoyed that scene, one, because it's a great character moment, but two, it kind of relates to a criminological theory that I'll talk about much later. Clip of the very short image of Mr. Lee on the beach and the seagulls are chirping and the sun is shining and his face just looks very open and unguarded, and it's such a beautiful scene. And then they show it again after he has died, and that's when I was like, oh, they're trying to kill us. Mr. Lee is my all-time favorite character within this show, so you can just bet that like almost every one of his scenes I really enjoyed. But my actual all-time favorite scene from this show doesn't have to do with Mr. Lee. It has to do with our male lead, and it's a really small moment, and it's near the end of the series when he is packing to run away with our female lead, who I don't really talk about much in this review because frankly, I didn't really like her and I didn't really find her compelling at all. I didn't really like her motivations. She was just like a really unlikable character for me. So he's packing to run away with her to Australia, I believe. Even after everything that's happened, he's still packing his school books. And I found that just so heartbreaking because it really clearly illustrates for us what this character's motivations have always been, and that is to get into university and live a very standard, very socially acceptable, comfortable life, and it's just so sad. So before I talk about some of those criminological theories that I have mentioned already, I'm going to give my overall rating for this drama, so if you're not really interested in those opinions of mine, I'm just going to give you the rating right now. So this series, Extracurricular, it succeeds in every respect. The filmmaking, the editing, the soundtrack, the acting, even the color grading, like everything about this show is so masterfully put together and presented to you. So if I were to give you a very subjective rating, I would give it a 5 stars. I think it is playing to the genre to the best of its abilities. Like, this show could not be better, but because this is my channel with my own personal thoughts and my own personal enjoyment being really important, I'm gonna give this show only a 3.5 out of 5 stars. That's just simply because I didn't really love all of the characters. I thought the progression of some of the character arcs were not very satisfying, and I didn't get super emotionally invested. I'm a romance girl. And I hope you guys can respect that this is just simply not a genre that I find a lot of enjoyment in, but I do recognize that the show is incredibly well done. So subjectively, if you like crime thriller dramas, I think this is one you'll absolutely enjoy. If your tastes are more similar to mine, say you're already a subscriber of mine, I think we could skip this. Okay, so now let's completely switch gears, and I'm going to basically answer one of my commenters' questions, I guess. BH asked me for some of my insights on the show, being someone who has studied criminology. I have a criminology diploma, and basically what that is just the first 2 years of a criminology degree. Before I actually give you some of my thoughts about relevant criminological theories and prostitution practices in Canada, I do want to preface all of that by saying, yes, I do have some higher education in this field, but I am by no means an expert in criminological theory or psychology, and I'm also Canadian. A lot of my own perspectives on criminal deviance is through the lens of Canadian criminality. And okay, all that being said, here are a few of my thoughts that I had while watching Extracurricular. So the most obvious theory that this show is exploring is strain theory, and for this section of this video I'm really going to only talk about the behaviors of our male lead, because those are the ones that are most obvious to me, and I'm not going to rewatch the show and do meta-analysis. Like, that's just not going to happen. Strain theory was further developed by Robert Merton in the 1930s, late 1930s. He basically argued that one's society is largely responsible for the deviant behaviors of the individual, because our society puts pressure on the individual to obtain socially accepted goals that measure our success. And I'm going to be using the term deviant a lot. As a brief definition of deviant, it's a behavior that goes against societal norms. So again, his dream of going to university is a socially acceptable goal. Other ones could be getting a job, getting married, having kids, like very that white picket fence idea of a successful life. Now, because he has prescribed to this socially acceptable goal of success being university, strain theory says that there's now two paths he can take to get that goal. There's other aspects of strain theory that I'm not going to talk about. Say if an individual rejects societal's goals of success, we're not going to talk about those because they're not really relevant, but he has accepted it. He actively dreams of going to university and achieving this form of success. So there are two ways he can now do that under strain theory. He can conform, which would mean he does part-time jobs, he gets a scholarship, he can conform to also socially acceptable ways of getting money to fund that socially acceptable goal, or he can innovate by using illegal means such as drug dealing and pimping. And we all know which path he took. Our male lead is a little innovator. Another theory that popped to mind while I was watching the show is attachment theory. I'm not going to go into a huge explanation for attachment theory because, to be honest, I'm kind of rusty on it, but in general it kind of says that based on an individual's attachment to positive role models, be that parents, teachers, coaches, people like that, that attachment will directly correlate to one's likelihood of engaging in deviant activity. And if you've watched the show, which I'm hoping you have if you're watching this review, if you've watched the show, you know, for one thing, he doesn't have a mother figure. She left, and his father figure is worse than an absent father. He is a criminal who like actively undermines his child's future and is just like a horrible dad. So right there, our male lead is lacking in good, positive role models to attach to. Is partly why I found that earlier mentioned scene of when the homeroom teacher is asking him if he'd like to explode and he'll pick up the pieces for him just so powerful, because I realized that the show was like extending a hand to our male lead and saying, here's a good role model, form a good attachment. But then right as he's about to take the guy's hand, they get interrupted, and it's just so sad, because right there, I think if there was a singular moment throughout the show that could have changed our lead's fate, it would be that one right there. And it's just completely ruined, and it's so sad. So lastly, I want to talk about his security service, because I also think this was so well done, because the things that he provided for the girls, like connecting them with safe Johns, and also keeping a blacklist of dangerous Johns, providing them with a bodyguard, providing them with transportation. All of these things are infrastructures that Canadian sex workers have fought for in the past. So in Canada, the act of selling sex is not illegal, but the way the laws surrounding prostitution were written made the act of selling sex so incredibly dangerous and unnecessarily so that it might as well have been illegal. So under section 201 of the Criminal Code, being found or keeping a bawdy house was prohibited. Under section 212, living off of the avails of prostitution was prohibited. And under section 213, communicating in public for the purpose of prostitution was prohibited. So to put it in a different way, banning a bawdy house forced sex workers onto the streets. And the streets are a dangerous and uncontrollable environment for a sex worker to be in. And if living off of the avails is illegal, then a sex worker can't hire a bodyguard. She can't hire a manager. She can't hire a driver. She becomes very isolated. Or he. I'm not saying men can't be sex workers, but... And lastly, if a sex worker cannot communicate for the purpose of their trade, then they can't negotiate prices, they can't communicate between each other to share information about clients. Like, they can't legally share a description of a dangerous John because that's communicating for the purpose of prostitution. So just the way the criminal code was written around sex work was just absolutely horrendous, and it just added undue risk onto sex workers. But in 2013, the Supreme Court of Canada, which is our highest form of court, it's often been called the court of last resort, they ruled that all three of these provisions within the criminal code were violating Canadians' right to security of person, which is in Section 7 of our Charter of Rights and Freedom. So that was a monumentous decision that the Supreme Court of Canada made back in 2013. I have not kept up on the laws. I don't know how or if they've even been changed to accommodate that Supreme Court's decision, but I bring it up because everything that our male lead provided for his prostitutes, it sounds so weird to say that, everything he provided for his sex workers made their job safer, and in a very genuine and realistic way. Because just look at Canada. When Canada, they were not allowed to do any of those things, prostitutes got together, and this case is called Canada versus Bedford if you are wanting to look it up more. Wow, okay, so I've been talking so long that my camera ran out of space, so I will end it right here. I hope you guys found this review helpful and maybe a little bit interesting. Again, I don't think this is a must-watch for everybody, but if you are a fan of the crime thriller genre, you're probably gonna love it. Okay, have a good day, have a good night, bye.